When I borrowed that induction heater the other day, it didn't have any instructions with it. And the guy I borrowed it from, he has a pacemaker. And it says right here, you can't use this if you have a pacemaker. So I didn't have much information to go on. But the reason it didn't work on some of these plugs, I found out later, is they told me that the object that you're heating up has to be metallic. In other words, magnetic. And even though those stainless plugs were slightly magnetic, because I tested them to make sure they weren't stainless, but I must have only got slight heat because they were slightly magnetic. I don't even know if it worked, you know what I mean. But that was the problem. And like I was thinking, those two that wouldn't come out were stainless. And so I went to town and got some stainless nuts to put on them and weld them and back them out. And so all the plugs are out now. Everything's fine. I've chased all 90 or so threads on the block. And the only ones that had any dirt in them were some of the head bolts. They had some crusty, I don't know, rust, dirt, whatever. But you just, if this doesn't run down, then you know that they're not good. And this particular bolt depth and this particular tool are a pretty good match, because when it bottoms out, you know you got the whole head stud. And that gives you about 1.1 inches for the head bolts to go in, and that's longer than the head bolt sticks out. So that worked out good. If on the ones that are bad, or once you find some that are bad, you know, you just take a little flathead screwdriver and you stick it in there and kind of dig at it and pry at it and pick at it, and take a gun, air gun, but you got to get a rag and put over there and then blow it out, and not, you know, if you blow that stuff out without a rag over it, and you're just holding the rag up here where it still has room to drop out. But, you know, that stuff may be coming out of there at 100 miles an hour, and if it goes in your eye, you're not going to like that. So don't do that. And then you just run a bottoming tap in there, some kind of thread cleaning tap, bottoming tap, whatever you want. And it'll all clean out and everything will be fine. These had some mud in them or something. I don't know how that got in there. I guess the box sits in a shop somewhere and all the dirt goes down in the holes or something. But anyway, it's all cleaned up. Now I have to do the pipe plug. I think there's 9 or so pipe plug threads. Need to clean them out. And then all the threads will be done, and we're getting ready to wheel it out and strip it. This is why you have to chase the threads on the pipe fittings in the car, or in your motor. Let's say this is the motor in your car. You take it out. You're going to rebuild it and put it back together. If you don't chase this fitting out, get that corrosion. See those shiny first 3 or 4 threads, and then the rest is corroded? Okay, so different pipe plugs will fit in that hole in different depths. So let's say you don't clean this out. Now when you put the random pipe plug in here and try to tighten it up, you're going to tighten it till it's tight. But in reality, it's not tight, because all you did was run into that corrosion, and so you stopped. It's tight, right? No, it's not tight. The threads aren't even coming close to tight yet. You just bottomed it out against the corrosion. This is why run a pipe tap through all these holes. Now, you know, a pipe tap is tapered. You know, it's not straight. You can't just run it all the way through like all these other bolt holes. You have to just go through there and let that tap clean that trash out of there, and then your pipe plug will really seal. Otherwise, you know, it may leak water when you get done, and then you're going to be unhappy. After I got the threads chased, I thought I ought to clean out the oil passages in the block. I mean, I'm not going to be able to get the paint out of them, but at least get them where they're open and clean, and you know they got to be clean for the stripper to work on the paint, the ones that have got such heavy paint in them. So these two that go to the rocker arms, it would only, this poor brush is taking a licking. They would only go in about 1.5 inches, and this side would go in about 2 inches. And I kept jabbing this thing in there over and over and over and over, and it just would not go. I probably gave it 100 pumps. So that wasn't going to work. So I tried to find a little rod to drive in there with a hammer, and I can't believe there's not a 3/16 rod in this building, but shockingly there wasn't. So I drove to town and got this 3/16 rod, and I even bent this thing on the end and drove this rod through there. It's about a 1/4 inch hole, but I drove this 3/16 rod in there, and I'm spraying WD-40, trying to get the mud wet, trying to get the rust freed up a little bit, just trying to get it wet where it won't have such a grip on it. And I'm spraying and I'm dry. So then, after I get that through there, I use this 1/4 inch brush, and I had to jab between these two holes. I had to jab this thing 1,000 times to get the mud out of these two oil passages. Don't ask me how these kind of things happen, because I really don't understand. I don't get it, but it is what it is. Yeah. So there's a lot to do, but I'm getting there. I've got most everything cleaned up as far as at least it's clear and clean. There's still rust, there's still paint, but we're going to get to that. Can you see how far that red paint goes in there? As far as the eye can see, it's but did I tell you, I think this isn't Gliptol, I don't think. I think this is some cheap red Rust-Oleum primer that is going to come off real easy, I believe. But I'm going to have to get in there. So I got a cheap Amazon gun cleaning kit, and you got these swabs. So, you know, that got that big extendable thing. And so I'm just going to soak this in stripper and stick it in there, and then work it all around all the way to the back. And I think that paint's going to give it up. Between this and then coming through there with the wire brush, I think that's going to give it up real easy. I've got some, I got a gallon of paint stripper, and then I got a can of aerosol paint stripper, but that aerosol's not going to go in there very far. So I think this is the answer, and I believe it's going to give it up. There are some oil passages that I can't get the swab through. If there's paint down here at the beginning of this passageway, I have no good way to swab it. But I've got this thing. So I can suck up some stripper, and I can shoot it in this hole and get the stripper where it needs to be, and then get the steel brush and work that out. I just don't have a way to swab it in there good. But this will work. The last thing we need to think about on the block is this problem. Yes, it's got a 3/8 oil pickup. Now, I don't understand that, because I've never built a wedge for myself. I'm a Hemi guy, so I don't understand. But it's not a problem for a Hemi guy, because all he does is he screws a plug in there, and then you get a Milodon pan with a pickup in it, and you run a single -12 line to your oil pump. And so this This problem doesn't exist for him, but this block is for Joe. And, Joe, I can tell you that when I tell him I'm unhappy with a 3/8 pickup, he's going to bow up on me, and I'll tell him we have to have a -12 line, and he'll say, okay, I'll put one on. But he's not going to, it's just a street car. We don't know what his power objectives are, but he might end up with 450 or 500 horsepower, and I don't like that in that application. That was plenty big when these blocks were new, and they made 335 horse or whatever, But times have changed. So what are we going to do? Well, the only thing that I think we can get away with is we're going to have to convert it to a Hemi pickup. That'll give you about 50% more surface area, and maybe that'll be good enough for what he's wanting to do. When these engines were built 50, 60 years ago, and they were sold with pretty tight clearances on the mains and rods. And now, of course, you can't get on the internet without seeing everybody saying you absolutely positively have to have 2.5 to 3.5. And so, of course, that increases your oil demand. And you've got 16 lifter bores that probably leak twice as much oil past them. I mean, they're 50 years old. I mean, they're worn. And nobody ever does anything to them. The only thing you can do is bronze bush them, and nobody does that on street cars. So I would guesstimate the total oil demand is double on an engine put together today from what it came new, I'm guessing. Now, I'm not going to preach to you or try to convert you to 1/2 inch. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying that the oil demand has gone up, and you cannot get on these Mopar websites without seeing at least once a month somebody who's got low hot oiling pressure and can't figure it out. Well, folks, we can figure it out. Your oil demand has gone up, and you've got the stock oil pump and pickup, and so yes, it's not really hard to figure out, folks. In the BRB Bible from Mopar, they say the only oil system mod to make is to convert it to a Hemi pickup. And Tom Hoover says that all the passageways in the block are big enough for the oil pressure going in. He says only work on the suction side, concentrate there. And that's what we're doing here. We need a bigger suction side, and this will give it to us. We're going to have to convert it to a 1/2 inch pickup, and maybe I should I've never done this. This is not a Hemi issue, so I would just plug it and go external, of course. But we have to convert this to 1/2 inch pickup. We can't tell Joe, or he'll bow up and tell me that he'll put an external line on it, and then he won't. And I want one of those bumper stickers that says, "Friends don't let friends use 3/8 oil pickups." That's... Now, I know you're going to tell me that people have been running 3/8 oil pickups at the drags every weekend for 60 years. Some of them very fast cars, 10-second quarter-mile cars, and all that. And you're right. You're absolutely, positively right. But that doesn't make it right for you and me. We can't do that. So we need to admit that we can't do that. And We just have to convert it to half-inch. If you go to a single dash 12 line, that will double your surface area, and that would be a whole lot better answer. But you know, it's going to be a street car and all that, and so I don't think I should tell Joe though, because you know, I don't want to argue with him. I think it's just we ought to just whack it and not tell him. He's gone to the no-name nationals anyway. He won't know what's going on, and he'll have to buy him a new pickup, of course, and he'll have to buy a Hemi pan. But every wedge should have a Hemi pan anyway, and so yeah, that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to whack it. The instructions are in the Mopar BRB book, and he'll figure it out when he picks it up. He'll figure out that something looks different, you know. But that's okay. So after a day of prep for the stripper for tomorrow, a guy walks in my shop today and says, "Oh, by the way, the machine shop's going to get new hot tank chemical this week." Well, you know, we used to have 5 machine shops in this small town, and now we have 1, and his chemical has been so weak for the last year, it takes nothing off. It may come out more rusty, I'm not sure. But if he's got new chemical this week, then I think that's the way to go. It's 120 miles to go to Little Rock to get it hot tanked, and 120 miles to go there to pick it up. So no, I didn't want to do all that. But if he's going to get new chemical this week, then I want to do that. Now, if you try to strip this, when you paint all that stripper in here, then you come back with the pressure washer, all that stuff's going to blow right back on you. There's some spots where you can blow it away from you. But up here, all this is going to go right back in your face, on your body. Sure, you'll have long sleeves on and a face shield and all that, but it's a nightmare. It's terrible. So now I'm going to give him a couple days and let's see what he comes up with. And maybe if he gets the chemical in there, it'll come out looking really good and everybody's going to be happy.